A young Indiana boy, 4 years of age, tragically was brutally beaten to death by his elder cousin, 33 years of age. Why would the older cousin do this? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, because the 4-year-old boy, his name Keandre Shamar Jolly, put his shoes on the wrong feet. He's 4 years old. He's gonna make mistakes. It's not a big deal, you scumbag. 33-year-old Montrell Deontay Jolly, the older cousin, he couldn't process the fact that his 4-year-old cousin, a baby, an infant, put his shoes on the wrong feet. Okay, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. It doesn't affect anyone. It does not lead to violence. You sick cunt. Again, the elder cousin's called Montrell Deontay Jolly, 33 years of age. He's been charged in connection with the death of his cousin, 4-year-old Keandre Shamar Jolly. I'll say at this point in time, full condolences to the family and friends, well, the family of Keandre, being looked after by his elder cousin. You'd imagine he was safe, but no. The elder cousin is believed to have beaten 4-year-old Keandre Shamar Jolly to the point of death for a couple of extremely trivial reasons, one of which was the 4-year-old Keandre put his shoes on the wrong feet. He didn't know his left from his right. He didn't realize he's 4 years old. He's a boy. He's a baby. He's an infant. He's a toddler. That's what toddlers do. That's what babies do. They're going to get things wrong because they're not mature adults. They don't know everything. So you just deal with them calmly in a protective manner and you just help them. Oh, okay, Keandre. Actually, you put your feet in the wrong shoes, so let me help you with that. Let's get this right. How long would that take? What, 20 seconds? But that's too much for scumbag 33-year-old Montrell Deontay Jolly. So we're told that the incident occurred July 28th in Lafayette, Indiana. Police were called to an apartment at around 4:30 p.m. in regards to a report of a child having a seizure. When paramedics arrived, they found 4-year-old Keandre unconscious. Initially, it didn't seem that he was visibly injured, but upon closer examination, medics observed that Keandre's pupils appeared constricted and another of his pupils seemed blown. So one small, one large, and seemingly that can be a sign of a head injury. Keandre was rushed to hospital. Tragically, Keandre never regained consciousness. He was pronounced dead August the 1st. An absolute tragedy, beaten to death by his own cousin, allegedly. So medical staff reported Keandre's injuries as being a result of non-accidental trauma. With that, a police investigation was launched. Officers investigated, examined the apartment concerned in Lafayette, Indiana, and officers found blood on a counter and sink in a bathroom, so blood in various parts of the bathroom. In addition to that, they found damage to the exterior of the bathroom door. In addition to that, they found blood stains on multiple walls. They also found marijuana on the property. So we're told that the scumbag alleged murderer was angry with 4-year-old Keandre, not only because Keandre put his shoes on the wrong feet, but also because when Keandre went to the bathroom, he sat on the toilet. The scumbag murderer, alleged murderer, Montrell Deontay Jolly, was insistent that 4-year-old Keandre shouldn't sit on the toilet. He should stand to pee. And seemingly that was another of the extremely trivial reasons that angered this mental midget, this psychopath, to the point that he beats a 4-year-old boy, his own cousin, to death because he put his shoes on the wrong feet, because he chose to sit down to take a pee and not stand. It beggars belief, the insanity, the mental immaturity, the evilness of this 33-year-old elder cousin. So of course, the elder cousin, Montrell Deontay Jolly, was taken in by police. He was interrogated, or interviewed perhaps, and the elder cousin told police that he was attempting to discipline Keandre by forcing him to squat against a wall for a prolonged period. The elder cousin allowed Keandre to use the bathroom, but he grew angry when the boy sat down to urinate instead of standing up. So I'm going to say that I've been running this true crime channel for around 2 years. I've covered, 1,000 articles at this point? A lot of articles. Yeah, more than, I think like more than 2.5, something like that. And this is something that I've seen multiple times by these sick, psychopathic child abusers. They force physical exercise on their victims. So 4-year-old Keandre was forced to squat against a wall for a prolonged period to essentially, stand in a certain way, squat in a certain way, which is going to be very difficult for any human being to maintain. So the elder cousin's acting like an absolute bully, as if 4-year-old Keandre was a member of an elite Marine squad. Oh, Keandre, you think you're a tough guy? Well, stand in this position, squat in this position for several hours at a time. That is sick, to inflict that kind of physical pain, emotional pain, absolute bullying on anybody, least of all a child, is just extremely sick and evil. And then the other aspect, getting so angry, so rageful at such trivial things. The 4-year-old boy chose to sit down to pee. Does that really matter? Who gets harmed in this? Okay, maybe he is more comfortable doing that. Maybe his aim's gonna be better when he sits down. Whatever the reason is, can't you just let him pee how he wants to pee? Yet this scumbag is just too emotionally immature. That's my take on it. That's the term I'm using. Perhaps there's a much better one. But too emotionally immature to be able to allow another human being, a child, to be a child. No, you cannot do things that way. You must do things my way. And he allowed that to become murderously rageful. So we're told that the scumbag forced the boy to continue squatting against the wall. Seemingly, the scumbag left the boy alone, just squatting against the wall in this difficult position to maintain, scared, alone, physically and emotionally traumatized. His cousin, the person that's there to look after him, forcing him to do this, getting angry when he puts his shoes on the wrong foot. The elder cousin at some point returns to the bathroom and finds 4-year-old Keandre unresponsive on the floor. So we don't know who called for emergency medical services. Perhaps it was the scumbag elder cousin. Perhaps it was somebody else. We don't know. We're told that an autopsy revealed that Keandre suffered blunt force trauma to his head and he had internal and external cuts. I'm wondering if this is the only incident that Keandre suffered. We don't know how frequently this cousin looked after Keandre. We don't know if Keandre suffered abuse from any other family members. Perhaps that's wrong of me to suggest that, but I'm just questioning, how did this happen? Was he like a perfectly normal, healthy boy living a perfectly normal, healthy life with his normal family, and then one day he's left for a few hours with his cousin and these awful things happen to the point that he dies, suffers blunt force trauma to his head, suffering internal injuries and external cuts? Does that come from nowhere? All of that comes from nowhere. Or was he subjected to ongoing abuse, perhaps by the cousin, perhaps by other family members? I don't know. I'm just a bit confused. If you see my point, like how shocking would that be if you typically are looked after by your loving family and then you're spending time with this one guy who just goes absolutely savage. The elder cousin is facing charges of murder, neglect of a dependent resulting in catastrophic injury, aggravated battery, and battery resulting in the death of a person less than 14 years old. He's also facing a charge as a habitual offender, as he was on probation after a 2022 conviction for possession of meth. There we go, parents. Don't leave your children in the care of meth users. The scumbag faces 45 to 65 years in prison if convicted on the murder charge alone. So he needs to be convicted. The article's pretty short, doesn't give us every last detail, but as far as we understand, based on the limited info within this one article, the 4-year-old boy was left in the sole custody of this scumbag, his elder cousin, Montrell Deontay Jolly. Clearly, the medical examiners know what they're talking about. Clearly, the autopsy is able to accurately identify the cause of death, and we're told that Keandre suffered blunt force trauma to his head, internal and external cuts. The elder cousin has admitted to officers that he subjected Keandre to physical torture, in my estimation. He's admitted that. He left him, abandoned him, Keandre, in the bathroom to continue with the physical torture. The elder cousin came back at a certain point, and lo and behold, Keandre had succumbed to the torture, of course exacerbated by seemingly having been beaten. So not only being told to squat for a prolonged period, perhaps hours at a time, but also he had already been beaten. He'd suffered blunt force trauma to his head. He had internal and external cuts. I mean, this seems like an open and shut case to me. I have no doubt that he's going to be found guilty of murder. And with that, I do hope that he gets the sentence which is mentioned here, 45 to 65 years in prison on that one charge alone. The other charges will just add to that. But yeah, give him 65 years. Why not? He's 33 years old now. That will make it 98 when he comes out of jail if he's not given parole. I'd be happy with that. I think the family who have been ripped apart by this awful, disgusting act, that will give them some level of comfort. It's never going to bring Keandre back. They're always going to have a very dark cloud over them. They're always going to carry this loss with them. But at least a long prison sentence is going to allow them to get some level of satisfaction that the murderer of their baby boy is going to be suffering for an extremely long time. And that's how we work as humans. We need a little bit of revenge, a little bit of vengeance. We need it. Without it, if we feel that someone's gotten away with murder, someone that's gotten away with causing severe harm, then we hold on to resentment. And this kind of resentment can destroy somebody's life, their mentality. So we need the scumbag to be locked away for a very long time. I'm going to mention that there is a GoFundMe account, which is there to raise money for his funeral, Keandre's funeral. And that's pretty much all the information that we have. If I come across an update at some point, perhaps I'll cover it. I don't think I will. These kind of processes take years and they may not be reported on down the track, whether or not this case goes to trial. Perhaps the murderer will plead guilty, take a plea deal, and that's not necessarily going to be something which is going to appear in articles. But perhaps if I do see a significant update at some point in the future, perhaps I'll touch base with it. But again, full condolences to the family of the deceased 4-year-old boy, his life taken away needlessly and in a barbaric, torturous way. Keandre Shamar Jolly, an absolute innocent, his life taken away, forced to suffer blunt force trauma to the head, internal and external cuts. Disgusting. I hope the scumbag murderer is incarcerated for a very long time and suffers at the hands of... Well, I probably shouldn't finish the sentence there, so I'll wrap things up. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care.